Hey, so I want to share this new build, budget tornado shot. I've had a lot of questions on stream, like, hey, can I do tornado shot with a budget build? I don't really have mirrors to like replicate your build. And like, of course you can. You can play a bow build for really cheap, but a lot of cheap bow builds, like 100 to 200 divines, like line and arrow MF, are really, really bad until you have like headhunter stuff. So I went ahead and made like a real budget build, as in like 100 to 140 divines. Um, get it for cheaper if you want to sacrifice some defense. But yeah, so here's the build: 974k DPS, 200% move speed, your spell success cap, you have a lot of evasion, um, you know, decent EHP for a magic find build, especially on a budget, right? And you have 9 arrows. Um, so yeah, DPS is pretty good. So the basics of this build is Dance with Death, on the coil belt, and volatility support. This is the idea Rutu used for his channel shot build, and I'm essentially taking that idea and making it into a magic find build. Obviously, I had to make quite a bit of adjustments, but I'll try to go over the build real quick. So yeah, the build is roughly 100 to 140 divines. The biggest cost here in the build is obviously Progenesis. These Forbidden Jewels, which is like 20 divines each. Progenesis is like 40 divines. And 2 projectile tattoos, and these are like 10 divs each. So all that together right there is roughly like over 80 divines, right? Plus another like 10 divines for like these boot corruptions. So yeah, that's 90 divines, 90, 95. Obviously, you can make it a lot cheaper by just sacrificing Progenesis, and then you can use something like a Silver Flask instead. You get more damage, and you get to save 4 points right here. Take these points out. So you can do that to make it more budget. Just be wary if you do that. You're on a really, really tight budget. You will be quite squishy, as you can see. Your Vismax hit really, really low. LA Max hit pretty low. So yeah, I do recommend to use a Progenesis, but if you really, really are on a budget, then you don't have to start with Progenesis. But yeah, um, the build with all this included is probably like 120 divines ish. Like I said, the market's going to move, day by day. It really, really depends. This Doomfletch build corruption is probably like a few divines. This quiver is pretty garbage, right? This is probably like a few divines at most. You can get a way better quiver than this, right? So you can get way higher DPS. Buggy's Embrace, whatever, right? You don't need this corruption. Optional corruption. Tedimas, you do want attack your corruption. This is pretty cheap though, a few divines. Amulet. The only important thing on this amulet is strength and intelligence and flat fizz. You don't even need max life on this. So yeah, really cheap amulet. Really cheap venters. You want high max life, some amount of quant, some amount of rarity, and some res. See, this is very low res, 40 fire, 5 cold, 18 lightning. This one's the same, high life, some quant, some rarity, and then like some res. This is high lightning, low fire, low cold. These vendors are probably like a few divines each, right? And a good belt can go for like 5 divines or something. So yeah, it's probably like 120 divines for everything, maybe like 130. Take out Progenesis, it's going to be like 90-ish divines if you want to start without this. Yeah, that's pretty much like the whole cost of the build. And like I said, the basic idea, um, is using Dance with Death. This thing gives a ton of damage, as you can see, about 69% DPS, along while using the coil belt, which gives a 55% DPS, and then volatility support, as you can see, gives 50% DPS. Essentially, the core idea of the build is to get the maximum amount of more attack damage, and then because of Dance with Death uses a lucky mechanic and how lucky works, you essentially roll twice, so you roll 2 damage hits, and it takes the highest damage hit. So your maximum damage is really high, and you're rolling twice at every hit, and it's always going to choose the highest hit. So yeah, that's the basics and core idea of the build. So yeah, I think this build's pretty effective, especially for the price. You're going to be pretty satisfied. I don't think any other tornado shot or lightning arrow build as Magic Find will even have closest performance for the same price. I mean, you want to see the quant rarity, 76% quant to 70% rarity, pretty much. Also, you can get 80% quant with Perfect Ventures, but also it's way more expensive. Rarity is pretty much capped out. Not a very high rarity build because you're missing a helmet, and helmets where you get a lot of rarity, obviously, right? So yeah. Um, Also the build's level 98. I would recommend to get this level. because when you start Magic Finding, you will die no matter what build you're playing, and it's very hard to level. So do try to get level 98. You really don't want to skip any points here. You're really tight on points. Cap spell suppression exactly. So if you take out like 1 point, like right here, right, you're no longer cast spell suppression. So yeah, do try to get level 98. It's not too hard. You know, the 5 ways, right? It costs you like maybe 10 divines total. So yeah. Also, this jewel very important. Green Nightmare. For this, I guess for the tattoos, right? Green Nightmare. So you want to use a bunch of cold red tattoos to cap your suppression. All the dex nodes are moving speed tattoos. Some of these can also be projectile speed tattoos, but I think you have enough projectile speed. And then of course you're using 2 additional proj tattoos. Outside of that, you're using 1 light and res tattoo. This is just to cap your light and res. You don't need this if you get better light and res on your ventures. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's pretty much about it for the build. I don't really have a gameplay showcase. I'm just want to get this POB out there for the people who want to, who don't have as much currency. They want to set Magic Finding, and they don't, they want to do Caustic Hour, right? They want to do something different. They like bow builds. So I mean, this is the build for you essentially. It's not going to be anything special, not going to be anything like amazing, but I think for the price range, it is definitely one of the better Magic Find builds you can play. It will be very effective, pretty, like I said, cheap for a Magic Find build. Obviously, still expensive, like 100 divines or something, whatever, right? But for what you're getting out of this, it's definitely worth the price. So yeah, that's about it for the build guide. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Also stream on Twitch daily if you want to check me out or, have any questions. So yeah. Oh, I guess one last thing. Also, the regex code here. So if you're wondering what regex to use this one. Play with the block. And you can also make your own regex at this link right here. So yeah, that's about it for the video. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below.